Hey, it's Matt here, and I want to thank you for watching another of our Real Talk interview series where we meet with local real estate experts and cover different aspects of the industry. And today we're going to do a deep dive on the home inspection. I have here with me Brian Murphy of A Action Inspections. Brian, thank you for being here and joining me.
Well, thank you, Matt, for the invite. We appreciate that.
I really appreciate you taking your time. Before we jump in, maybe you can take a moment and tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Brian Murphy. I've been a home inspector now for 25 years, kind of a long time, and so been performed personally a little over 8,000 inspections myself.
Just a few.
Yeah, just a few. So I kind of know what the consumer expectations are and what they like. We also operate a multi-inspector company. We're based out of Arlington, but we cover all the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and so we have 12 inspectors, and we produce roughly about 4,000 inspections a year between the 12 inspectors.
Yeah.
And then I really enjoy the home inspection industry, so we give back quite a bit. I sat on the state regulatory board for 13 years that regulated home inspectors in the state of Texas, and then do a lot of education as well.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've liked about your company is everybody's really trained and really professional, and why I consistently recommend them to my clients. So tell us, what is a home inspection?
Well, a home inspection itself is just a general overview of the condition of the property. So what we do is we do a visual evaluation of the property, and that way the consumer is armed with information so they get a better idea of what they're purchasing. Yeah. Often the consumer, whenever they go in to buy a house, they've maybe spent 15-20 minutes in the house, and then they go make the biggest financial decision they've ever made in a 15 to 20 minute visit, where when you have a home inspection, the home inspector can come in, spend 3 or 4 hours in the home, get a really good idea of the property, and share that information with the buyers.
Yeah, I think it's smart due diligence for all buyers to do. Yeah. What during the inspection, what gets inspected?
Well, everything that's with the main house, so kind of keep that in mind. It's not driveways or fences or outdoor lighting. So it's basically on the structural side of things, it's performance evaluation of the foundation, roof covering, roof structure, the exterior cladding, whether it's brick, stone, fiber cement, and then all the outlet switches and fixtures in the home, all the plumbing in the home, the water heater, panel boxes, insulation, I think I said appliances, all the appliances in the home. There's other optional systems that can be evaluated at the same time, like swimming pools and sprinkler systems and that type of stuff. So it's pretty comprehensive. It's pretty intensive.
I think people don't, for the first time home buyers don't realize all that's going to get inspected in the process. Who should get a home inspection?
Well, anyone considering purchasing a home.
Yeah, for sure.
Whether it's an existing home, whether it's 1 year old, 100 years old. We see all kinds of sizes, all kinds of ages. And then also during the new construction process, a lot of people don't really consider or think about, I should have a new home inspected. And you'd be really surprised what we find during what we call phase inspections, before they pour the concrete for the foundation and before they hang the drywall, have another one. And then the final inspection.
And that's something I want to talk to you about, is because a lot of people, when they're buying a new home, they're just like, oh, it's great, the builder gave me a 1-year warranty. I don't need to make that investment in a home inspection. But you're saying, hey, there are different parts of the process when you're building a home, and you can inspect in each phase, correct?
Yeah, each phase. Yeah. And if you catch it early, you're able to pick up those things you wouldn't have been able to find otherwise, or that don't show themselves until 2, 3, 4 years later, where they didn't put the flashing details correctly around windows and doors, and now you have these water stains and you don't know where they're coming from.
It's one of the rare times you can inspect behind the walls.
Yes.
You haven't covered them up yet.
Those rare times.
Yeah. Now, what about homeowners that are maybe already living in a house? Are there times when they might want to think about getting inspection?
So there's a couple of different times to have the home inspected. Yeah. It would be before you're getting ready to sell the home, especially if you inherited the home or something like that and you have no idea what's going on with the house. You can have an inspection done at that point in time. That way I need to do these things before we put it on the market, or we discover things that they had no idea that were there that could be taken care of. That way they get a cleaner inspection report when the buyers bring an
So somebody who
inspection
doesn't
in.
know what's going on in the house or doesn't want to have surprises when they're under contract and thinking about going to the next home, they can sort of get ahead of any surprises.
That is correct. And then the other one that we offer, we call it the healthy home inspection. And so if you've been in your house 10, 15, 20 years and you're getting ready to remodel, or you've got little things about the house that they're starting to happen, but I'm not real sure why, you get a full-blown inspection then as well, and the inspector can bring a lot of stuff to light that they didn't normally know.
Yeah, that's smart. Right before they remodel and start changing things, they can fix it right then.
Right.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's a really good point. But you mentioned most of the time, most of your business, people are doing it when they're purchasing.
Yeah, that's 90% of our work.
Yeah, and so when I think about the home inspection, the inspector's going to arrive and usually be there a couple hours. I always tell buyers, like, hey, let's go for the end, the last half an hour, 45 minutes, talk to the inspector. In that time, what are things you wish more buyers would be asking, or questions you wish would come up in those conversations?
So in those scenarios, buyers generally always have really good questions because they're curious about their home, but other questions ask, what are general maintenance things that I can do to help keep the house in good order and in good condition? Because a lot of times we'll talk with someone and they'll go, well, I plan on only being here 3 to 5 years or something like that. They get relocated on a regular basis. And so proper maintenance for a home, when to change the air filter, caulking around windows and grouting the bathroom. That way, if you keep up with the maintenance, when you go to sell the house, a lot of times it's referred to as deferred maintenance. A lot of deferred maintenance shows up in inspections where if you think about it ahead of time, you'll always get a cleaner inspection report later.
And so buyers can more or less use the time not to learn what's wrong now, but also like, how can I be a good homeowner when I have the house?
Yeah, especially for first-time home buyers as well. They just don't know a whole lot about homes.
I think it's a good point, because a lot of people are really like, what's wrong with the house? They're really stressed about the house, but it's a great opportunity to talk to an expert inside of what's going to be their house when they're there.
Right.
Yeah. So speaking of inspections even more, like what are things you see commonly come up? I imagine that there's pretty consistent issues or deficiencies, they'd be called in the report.
Right. Yeah. And so what some of the most common things are found are things that we're required to report on, even though they may be as-built situations. So home inspectors in the state of Texas are regulated by the Texas Real Estate Commission. So we have a set standards of practice that we operate under, and certain things we have to call out, even though they're as-built type situations. And it's unfortunate we have to check that fourth box called deficient, even though it's an as-built situation. So most commonly, the lack of smoke detectors in all the right locations, ground fault circuit interrupters in the right locations. Nowadays, the new components like arc fault circuit interrupters. And then other things, places that the homeowner generally won't go to, they won't go into their attics, or if they won't go into their own crawl space. And so let's say they hired someone to put in new lights somewhere or something like that, and they don't go to follow up on their work, and so they leave spliced wires in the attic, or the cable guy pulled some insulation down to run cable and then never put the insulation back. So those are all pretty common type finds.
That makes sense, yeah. And again, people are living in the house, they're not thinking about the attic or the crawl space or anything else. They're busy living life.
And that's one of the things we try to educate our buyers about as well, because when we're delivering the information to our clients, they'll go, well, they didn't disclose that. And I said, well, they may have not have known about it in the first place, and that's the reason why we have a job.
Yeah, I like to give sellers the benefit of the doubt. I know that I'm busy living my life. I'm not thinking about, is it up to 2020 code of the house, It seems like it works. Yeah. So what things might a home inspector not be able to tell somebody?
Well, there's, you remember it's a structure. So it's an envelope, and there's wall coverings and that type of stuff. So things like when you buy the home and you I want to go remodel the bathroom, and you start taking the tile off and you start taking the sheathing off, and home inspectors, when we get licensed, we don't automatically, acquire X-ray vision. So you might find some water damage in the wall cavity we couldn't address, or maybe even termites. Termites can live in a home up to 5 years without you ever knowing that you have termites in your house. And then this magical swarming season occurs every spring, and then they just pop out. So sometimes we'll get the phone call in spring, I have termites, why didn't you tell me? It's like, we didn't know they were there.
Yeah.
You couldn't see them.
Yeah,
so there's stuff like that, that are just kind of enclosed in the envelope, and there's no way to actually see them until you start taking the house apart.
Right. Not part of the process to take apart somebody else's house.
Right.
So that's the time when the homeowner can do that.
Right.
So when it comes to the home inspection, what are some mistakes you see buyers making?
Well, I'll be probably one of the biggest ones, just because I've been at it so long, is they don't interview their home inspector. Basically ask the right questions or do some research on their home inspector, because there's a licensing process for home inspectors. And believe it or not, in the state of Texas, you can go through the education and pass the test, become a professional home inspector without ever inspecting a single house. And so you know who your inspectors, who they are, what type of qualifications they have, because every house is a little different. So, if you have just a regular cookie cutter home, you can get a general home inspector that, has been at it for a little bit, and you probably won't go wrong on it. But if you have specialties like stucco around the house, most home inspectors don't know much about stucco, or, just kind of some geothermal, that type of stuff. So make sure that they know who they're hiring and what their credentials are.
It's like such a great life lesson. Like, don't know what you're getting into, and like who you work with does matter. In all sorts of industries. Yeah,
don't negotiate over $25 between two home inspectors. Get the right one for the job.
When the person's like, they can do it for only $200, and I'm like, well, you get what you pay for.
Right.
And if they miss something, it's going to cost you $20,000 possibly.
That's correct.
For a big mistake. So yeah, I think that's smart. You mentioned a lot of home inspections. I'm sure you have a funny story about something absurd that you have, or strange, like, that you've seen and come up in one of these inspections.
Well, yeah, a lot of houses. So some of them, like in a crawl space, you share the crawl space with animals from time to time. Yeah. I've been in crawl spaces with snakes and possums and that type of stuff. But I think I did one once. I believe it was haunted. You go into the kitchen and everything's closed, and then you go down the hallway and you come back and some of the cabinet doors are open. You're like, hey, this doesn't seem right.
Self-opening doors. I don't know it's a feature people wanted to pay for, though.
Right. Yeah, you leave that out of the comments in the report.
Oh yeah, and I think it's haunted, right? There's no checkbox for that. It's funny. It's a people industry, and we always see unique things. So, now for sellers. So, if a seller, how should they think about preparing for a home inspection?
Matt, that's actually a really good question. Even when you're doing a 1-year warranty inspection on new construction, how the current homeowner should prepare for the inspection as well. So to be able to make sure the inspector is able to get to everything in one visit, so it keeps from losing time and that type of stuff, is making sure there's access to all the major areas. Like, I love see notes on the countertop from the homeowners, and they said, dear inspector, here's the key to the panel box, just please lock it back up when you're done. Here's the key to the gate, make sure the gate's locked up when it's done. But all your major stuff, make sure you have access to the panel boxes, the crawl space, the attic access, the heat and air, and the water heater, and the panel box, and just making sure that way it's a one-time visit. No one's wasting each other's time, because time is money. And so if you have to revisit the house for some reason, there could be a reinspection fee involved in it. So we just want to try to make sure we get it all done in one visit.
Yeah. So all the things they moved to the garage so their house looked pretty when they sold it need to now be moved somewhere else. So you can
make a pathway to the sprinkler control box. Make a pathway to the water heater. Make sure there's nothing under the attic ladder.
Yeah, and have everything turned on. Yeah.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Making sure the utilities are on. If the house is vacant, sometimes they'll turn the water off just to be careful. The house doesn't flood accidentally or something like that. Make sure the utilities are on during the inspection.
Yeah.
A lot of home inspectors will turn certain things on, but a lot of home inspectors won't, touch a water key.
Yeah. So sellers shouldn't just take it for granted. They should do a little bit of prep.
Yes.
Probably not the morning of, but a little bit of
Right.
prep for their inspection.
And if you look on the seller side, because I've been in the industry so long and I see what the customer's eyes look like whenever I'm going over the information in the report, as a seller, it's a really good idea to prepare the house. If you know you're going to put your house on the market in 2 or 3 years or in 6 months, do some preparation ahead of time, and basically to get a cleaner inspection report, but you also get your top dollar for your home when
Right.
it shows well. And so in the North Texas area, we have a very expansive clay soil, so I tell people all the time, expect cracks in your wall. There's just no getting away from them because of the soil and the type of foundations we have in our area. So go in there and patch those cracks ahead of time. If you had a water stain, you know what caused the water stain and you already fixed it, go ahead and paint over the water stain so it doesn't show up or have a red flag of some sort. And that always helps people get a better price point for their home.
Yeah, that's good advice. Well, since you're here, can you tell us a little bit about A-Action and kind of what you would say differentiates you from other companies or other inspectors in the Metroplex?
Okay, well, we built our company on being a one-stop shop, basically.
Okay.
And so whenever you call on our team, you don't have to call any other service providers during the inspection process. So all of our inspectors are cross-trained. They go through a 4-month training process, riding side by side with another professional inspector, and they learn all aspects of the home and what to inspect and how to properly inspect it. But so all of our inspectors do their own water wells, their own septic systems, their own sprinkler systems, their own pools, plus the superstructure itself. And so really just a one-stop shop. We do a lot of commercial building type inspections as well. We offer specialty work where if you have some moisture problems you can't seem to find, and this is for buyers, sellers, or just the general consumer, because we use specialty tools like thermal imaging and moisture meters. And a lot of home inspectors don't carry those type of tools, but every single one of our team members, they have all the right tools to do the job, do it right.
Yeah, and I would say one thing adding to that I like as a real estate professional is that the reports come to us quickly.
Yes, sir.
Because sometimes your competitors, we have to wait a while.
Right.
And that can really slow down a transaction to not be able to keep moving forward past that.
We know that it's a tight timeline.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a 3-day option period, sometimes you have a 7-day option period. So, whenever you sign a contract on a home, it's important to have your people in queue and have them ready to go because of the tight timelines. And so you want to make sure that our clients get their information quickly because they have to make decisions, because sometimes something will show up in an inspection report. Your foundation looks great, but your air conditioner, the coils are a little dirty, not cooling quite right. And so now you have to get another professional out there to find out, why isn't the air conditioner cooling right? We can tell you a lot, but we can't, always tell you the cost or, is it at the end of its life, or what will it take to repair it? So just like if we have a foundation that's a little questionable, we're going to refer you on. And then you have, if you try to get an engineer out there, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 days to get an engineer out there. So it's, but to help with that, again, to kind of answer your question, what sets us apart is we carry all the same tools engineers carry as well. So we make good, solid calls before we refer you on.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we've covered kind of the whole gamut around home inspections. Is there anything else that you want to add or you think we should cover while we're chatting?
One of the questions you asked earlier was the client being there towards the end of the inspection. I think it's super important that the client's there at the end of the inspection because getting the information firsthand and for us to be able to see your eyes and that you understand the information because, you know, everything can be repaired. Anything and everything can be repaired. And some people get really stressed out because they don't understand the information. So when we're able to sit down with our clients and actually, I can see they're getting stressed out, maybe not, you know, understanding the information, we slow down and clarify it so we lower the stress level.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point because I seeing the full transaction from beginning to end, the home inspection can be really stressful and a person could start looking at the report and you're, like you said, you're required to identify code deficiencies. The house was built 20 years ago. Of course, you're going to find that, but there's really not a problem.
Right.
And people could really stew overnight and cause a lot of stress. So I think that's a great point. Be there in person.
One of the things that we help with is we try to get our clients, you know, we're going to document a lot of stuff and we're going to feed you a lot of information. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. But what we want to do is direct them to say, you know, we're required to report this, but they're not really that big of a deal. This is something that you can do later on down the road. Let's focus on the big stuff. Let's not micromanage the report or the house. Let's focus on the big stuff. So even though you're going to be delivered a lot of information, let's focus on the heat and air, or let's focus on the water heater, those type of deficiencies that could be pretty costly later on.
Helping people discern what's most important. Yeah. I really appreciate you being here and sharing with us all this wisdom. And to the audience, I want to thank you for tuning in again. As always, we're here to answer your real estate questions. I'll make sure to have our team's information. You already have that, and we'll also have Brian's team's information in the description as well, so you can reach out to A-Action if you have further questions. Thanks again for tuning in. In the meantime, I look forward to connecting with you soon. Take care.